Okay. Okay, here's a website I'd like you to go to. We're going to go to nearpod.com. Nearpod, nearpod.com. And then the code that it's going to ask you to put at the top, it's going to have a little menu bar. You don't need to have a login. You don't need to have an account. Don't do any of that. Just at the top, it'll say enter a code. And the code I want you to enter is T64HX. T64HX. So, welcome, Ms. Smith. Go to nearpod.com on your little Chromebook there. So Nearpod, Nearpod. Now the code T64HX. That'll get you logged in. It'll probably ask for like a nickname. Pick something school appropriate. I would just say just put your first name. You're not setting up an account. You don't need to do any of that. It's not another website you have to have another account for school. No, no, no. So I'll make this a lot easier than that on you. Something I kind of promised you we get into, and this is a good day to start. It's good. We're just going to take a light note day, just because I'm still grading tests, so I didn't want to put too much stuff on you guys. So, whoa, did I just zoom in too far? How far did I zoom? I don't know. Wow, that's huge. Okay. Yeah, let's go with that. Oh, it's good. Glasses. Okay, everyone make it to, or made it to the website, Nearpod. When you enter your passcode, does it look like that? Yeah. Now, here's the cool part of it. And you've probably already done it in other classes. When I control my slideshow, it controls the slideshow on your computer. So you can see the notes right in front of you, and you don't need to look up here too often if you're hard of sight. So I'm going to try this out. For any time we're going to do PowerPoints, I'm going to do this from now on. You can take screenshots of it as you go. It's kind of nice. You didn't need an account to do it. It just kind of runs. It just kind of works. And something that I've used years past and just kind of forgot about. And I talked about it at the beginning of the year, and I just totally forgot to kind of use it. So, but yeah, it was just kind of a fun thing. So if you want, so what I usually tell most kids, just like push your Chromebook off to the side of your desk. Just kind of put it in the corner. You can just use that as like a second screen if you can't see it. But I'll put most of my notes up here. I'll just let you know if I need to write down anything, and you can put that in your notes. You can have your notes open. Some people really like it because they don't need to always look up at the board every time. They can see the word in front of them. It's just kind of a cool concept when you start to see stuff. It doesn't lock down your browser or anything like that, so you can still open up other tabs if you need to, but hopefully you're not. Hopefully you can just kind of watch and have your notes out. We're going to take notes on Unit 3 now. We're in the third unit of this chapter, or of our geometry, and this is based on what they call deductive reasoning. That's the title of this unit. There's going to be a lot of Algebra 1 in this unit. A lot of Algebra 1, so it's a nice little review unit for you. Because there's some certain skills that you're going to need to have before we get into triangles and quadrilaterals, and there's things that I want you to be able to handle and not be so worried about your Algebra 1 skills. Okay? All right. Are we good to go? Okay. All right, so hopefully this is still up. It's still running. Yes. Okay, don't have any other tabs open if you can. So, okay, all right. So let's kind of walk through this here. So, probably should turn my little clicker on. Okay, so section 2.1. You can probably already see all the notes in front of you. I think it just appears. You don't have to wait for my clicks. You can kind of write down stuff if you need to. Section 2.1 of the textbook, it's part of Unit 3. There's two types of reasoning. Two types. The first one is called deductive reasoning. That's the main type that we're going to talk about. And then the second type is called inductive reasoning. These are the two types. Before you walk out of here today, I want you to know the definitions of these. Like, what does it mean? What are the differences between them? Okay? Believe it or not, everyone has both types of reasoning. When I get to the definition, you probably think otherwise, but once I actually define these words, but everyone has both types. You wouldn't be in this room if you didn't have both types. So, so I want you to write those two words down. Get them in your notes somewhere right now. I'll give you 2 seconds as I take attendance here. I've got to take attendance the first 2 seconds of this class here. I don't want to yell back. I swear I saw Skylar today. Do you know Stocky? I swear I saw him today. Huh. Okay. All right, let's get back into the PowerPoint here. Okay, all right, anyway. Okay, so there's two types of reasoning, inductive and deductive. Now let's do the definition first and we'll kind of talk you through it. So here's the definition of deductive. Okay, it is the basic idea of using facts, rules, definitions, formulas, anything you can think of, theorems and postulates to actually make a reasonable conclusion to something that you're looking at. People do this really fast. You make quick judgments every single day on every single action. The simple fact of just driving here, and a lot of you have your permits and driver's license and you drive here, you make thousands of decisions as you go. There's facts you're taking in, there's things that you're absorbing as you drive, and you're making quick decisions, things you've memorized, right? Deductive reasoning is a person that you can think of in your class that is extremely book smart. They can memorize anything, like anything. So usually people that have really strong deductive reasoning, they're typically really strong at mathematics, they're really strong at history. The reason why is that it's just memorization, right? It's just purely memorizing. How do you do a problem, okay? What are the dates that this battle happened on, or the dates of this presidency, that type of thing. You're just memorizing things. I require that you know some of this stuff. Think about this. I require that you know some of the definitions for vocab words. Right? That's something you need to know. I require that you know how to use your formulas. Right? You know your formula. You can identify what it is. There's certain theorems and postulates we're going to get in this unit for the first time. You haven't seen these two words yet. We're going to get into those. There's rules that you have to follow as we go through certain types of problems. That's very strong in mathematics. You have to have very good deductive reasoning, book smart. Okay. Questions on that? Pure memorization. Now, you can see I have somebody on your little slideshow, right? The slideshow person that you're seeing there is a savant. If you don't know what savantism is, it is an extreme human condition that gives people superhuman ability, right? So a lot of people don't know that that's an actual existing thing. Sevantism is it's a neurological disorder that is caused by the chemicals in your brain. And the person you're seeing there, Kim Peek, is probably one of the most famous savants in the world. Kim Peek has an extreme fascination with memorization, where he can memorize anything. And I'm talking anything. And it's so extreme, you can't even fathom how he can do it. Kim Peek, if you're a movie savant, and if you're into movies a lot, Kim Peek, the movie Rain Man with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman came out in the 80s. I know it's a really old movie, but if you've ever seen Rain Man, Kim Peek is based on that character. So, or the character is based on Kim Peek, I should say. This one's a real person. Kim Peek has extreme fascination with mathematics. He has extreme fascination with memorizing anything that he reads. So, and you're going to see a little picture of him. Kim Peek can read a book one time, right? He can scan the page. It looks like he's just looking for pictures in a textbook. That's how fast he flips pages. He's memorizing the page as he goes. It's instantly memorized. and he can recall the knowledge. So a lot of times with Kim, he would go on like Dave Letterman, a talk show host, or Colbert Show, or just other talk shows, Helen, or Ellen, I should say, not Helen, but Ellen, and they would ask him a book that he's been reading recently. So I think the ones that really blew my mind was like Stephen King's It. Right? Stephen King's It is a huge book. It's like 1,200 pages, and the challenge that they do is they just pick a page, they pick a paragraph, and they pick a sentence, and you just start reading it from there without looking at the textbook. Instantly. There was no delay. You just start and you start saying all the words that were on the page and just keep going. It was fascinating. And he only has to read things once and it's perfectly memorized. He'll just flip. So he has thousands of books in his memory. And the weird part about it is that his family didn't know. They thought he was I hate using this word, that he was mentally disabled, right? That they thought he had a severe issue, but after one of the first telltale signs that he has Sevantism is that he memorized the phone book that in his room. He had memorized it after reading it once. He could recall people's phone numbers and addresses by just seeing their name. And so they knew they had to get him tested. And so yeah, it's an extreme disorder. And you're going to see here now, typically Sevantism usually has a major drawback. Usually with like a major case of Sevantism like in Peak, is that they lack social ability. So you'll see here, he has to have a full-time caretaker. I believe it's his father that takes care of him. Kim Peak died a couple years ago, but yeah, he was really like fascinating when you saw it, because he couldn't make decisions for himself. He couldn't, feed himself. He couldn't dress himself. He basically could just recall knowledge. And so one of the party tricks he'd always do if he went to like a local university and had like, a town hall meeting, people could ask him a certain date of the year, and he could start spitting out all the stuff that he read in the newspaper that day. Like the Yankees scored 6-4, and it was, and it was cloudy with a chance of rain, and it was 64 degrees outside. And like he just memorized everything for any date. And he had this weird thing where you could tell him any date, and he could tell you exactly the day of the week that it was. So if you said, December 3rd, you go, oh, that was a Friday. This year it's a Saturday. Like he could just instantly tell you things. But he couldn't make decisions on his own because Sevantism caused neurological disorders, so he didn't have that ability to just talk. But I want you to see it because it's fascinating. This idea of this human ability that people have, and they just don't realize it.
When school isn't a place you have to be, why not go to school where remote learning can be as remote as...
When was the Walter Riley executed?
October 29th, 1618.
And what day of the week?
It was a Thursday.
October 9th, 1990.
It was a Saturday, and this was a Friday.
Yeah.
Your next Thanksgiving. I have so many things in me that you can't even guess them all. You know that.
Maybe that's one of the weirdest brains in the world.
He's become a living Google.
What Kim represents is the dark side of the moon. He is in love with knowledge for the sake of it.
One T.
He's a confounding mixture of disability and brilliance that neuroscientists are determined to understand.
It's a very exciting opportunity for us to find out what makes the human brain unique.
He just amazes me. The life is nothing I ever expected. I think I'd do anything for him.
Kim Peek is the world's most famous savant, the inspiration for the Oscar-winning film Rain Man. Kim was diagnosed mentally retarded at birth, but with his father Fran's unflagging support, he's developed a memory that's without equal. Rain Man's screenwriter Barry Morrow met Kim in 1984.
I was absolutely flabbergasted. As
So one of the things you're noticing there is, this is the movie director for the movie Ring Man. Kim Peek has this ability too, where he can look at a picture and tell you how many objects are instantly in that picture. So in the movie Ring Man, they had this scene where he was in a restaurant and the waitress had dropped a box of toothpicks, and he looked down and he said there was 264, and it was just an instant, it's instant numbers. So he doesn't have to count like 1, 2, 3. It was instant. It's 264 on the floor. And so what you're seeing on one of those computer screens is they're testing his ability, where they would show a picture with random objects. So you saw like X's and T's and O's and other shapes, and they put random numbers of them on the screen and just everywhere. And they would ask him, okay, how many X's are there? And there's 64. And they'd flip to the next slide and say another letter, and he would just instantly say how many there were without counting. It's this weird ability. It's a part of Sevantism that they have this extreme ability for just instant absorption of knowledge. There isn't like a processing involved. It's just instant memorizing and instant recall. And it's this weird thing that I didn't even realize it was a real thing. Now, where these episodes come from, obviously I'm on YouTube here, but Discovery Channel once a year features superhuman ability, right? It's I don't know what they call it. It's not like Shark Week or anything like that, but this particular week, it was back in like 2008 or something, they featured people with Sevantism all week, superhuman abilities. So Kim Peek was one of the days. It was like one of the first days of the week. It was a Sunday, and they featured him, and no one had, at this time, no one had really known about him. They knew the movie, but they didn't realize it was based on a real person. And it was fascinating. And so there's more. And so that's what I want to show you on the next couple of slides here. If you want to see this later, I can send out links and stuff, because I know some people like this stuff. They featured multiple episodes on him. And then throughout the week they had every day they had a different character, and they would have multiple episodes on them as well. So it was kind of fascinating that they decided to do something like that. Okay, so let's go back to the slides here. Okay, so that was Kim Peek. Extreme memorization, right? Now, the other side is called inductive reasoning. So deductive is pure memorization, recall, right? Inductive is completely different. It is being able to adapt to different situations. I always consider inductive reasoning as the person that isn't book smart, they're common sense smart, they're street smart, right? So think about this. Think about, somebody, don't say names, but just think about somebody in your class, you're like, man, they have no common sense. You probably have one in your head, like, yeah, they have no common sense. They're just all book smart, right? Or the extreme opposite. They're street smart, they have no book knowledge, right? The weird part is everyone has both. Everyone has both types of reasoning, right? Inductive. You wouldn't be in this classroom unless you had some type of inductive reasoning. You've recognized patterns. You've done your observations, and you made your logical conclusion to it, right? But it's using common sense, right? Because every single day you're on the road, there's different situations happening, right? You have to adapt. The light turns red at different times. It's not just on clockwork, right? You have different types of problems. Like I try to test inductive reasoning by, not only just giving you a math problem and doing it on your own, but you have to adapt to new types of problems all the time. I can only show you certain types. So people that have really low inductive reasoning, I can always tell instantly. Because when I'm in class and I do, let's say I do like 4 or 5 math problems on the board, let's say Algebra 1 problems, right? And so let's say I give you a problem like this. X plus 3 equals 10, right? And I show you how to solve that problem, that you have to subtract 3 to both sides. Subtract 3, and you tell me the answer is 7. Okay, perfect. Somebody that has inductive reasoning can go, oh, I can do that with any problem, right? I can do that if I had the number 8, right? Do you agree those are different numbers than the first problem? But you do it the same way, right? This problem even looks different. But they could take that, see the pattern, see what I did, and go, okay, well, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And get 4. That was a different answer. It was a different problem. That's inductive. You can observe, you can see the pattern, and use that to solve the next problem. I don't have to show you. The person I can tell that doesn't have a lot of inductive is the person when I assign homework on, let's say, algebra, because we are getting to the algebra section, and they're the first person that will raise their hand every single problem. I don't get it. What am I doing? You're doing this stuff, right? Add or subtract the number across. After you're done, then you multiply or divide. And their hand constantly shoots up because they don't observe and see the pattern. They don't make that logical step of just adapting on their own to a new problem. They're that person that can only do the problems I've shown them on the board, and they're the first to complain about it. You've never shown me this problem. How am I supposed to do it? Because you need to use inductive. You need to adapt on the fly to a new problem, right? I can always tell. And it's not that they lack it, it's just that it hasn't been nurtured enough that they can just do it on their own. That they can try a problem out and see how to do it. Now don't get me wrong, there's a difference between just not being taught a problem versus not being able to adapt to a new problem, right? Because geometry is tough. Like, don't get me wrong, there's certain things I can't prepare you for. There's just weird stuff that you have to just kind of make some educated decisions on and then go to that problem and just attempt it. But inductive is this idea that you've seen it before, you're switching gears and showing a new way to do it, right? So that's a weird thing. It's very different. Street smart, common sense versus book smart and just purely memorization. Now, the person that I want to show you is also considered a savant. His name is Daniel Tammet. Daniel Tammet is very young. He's actually a few years older than me. I think I consider young. Sorry, it's old to you guys, but I think he's about 40 now. They'll show his driver's license here in a minute on a little episode I'm going to show you. But Daniel Tammet is considered the smartest man on the planet, and he's like 40, right? And it's not like Stephen Hawking smart. If you know who Stephen Hawking is, the theoretical physicist, right? Daniel Tammet has the ability, like Kim Peek, extreme memorization, like instantly memorize things, but he isn't hindered by savantism like neurologically. So the weird part about Daniel is he can explain what he's going through. He can talk, he can adapt to new problems. When you talk to Daniel, he doesn't seem like he has any social issues. He doesn't have the same quirkiness that a normal savantism would have. And so they consider him the smartest man on the planet. You'll see from the video here, one of the tests when he put himself on the map, because no one really knew it, he contacted Discovery Channel when they were doing their Sevantism week, and he said, "Hey, I think I might be a good category for you guys." And they were blown away that he called them, number one, and tried to convince them to come test him. And so what Daniel Tammet can do as part of his test was he can divide any number in his head. Any number. It could be 100 decimals long, and he'll read it all off, one after another, without a calculator in front of him. And so they didn't believe him. They thought maybe he just has things memorized. So one of the tricks he can do, he can also square numbers like, cube numbers or quadruple numbers, right? Where he could take like 37 to the 4th power in his head and instantly read off the answer to it. That's 37 times 37 times 37 times 37. And he'll just start rattling off what the numbers are from the beginning to the end. Not the back number, but from the beginning to the end. It's wild when you see it work. But then they just thought maybe he just has things memorized, right? He's tricky. He has like an earpiece in, or he has, so they did all their tests, they did all their checks to make sure he doesn't have electronic devices or things that are showing. So what he did is he goes, okay, I'll prove that I have extreme memorization. He goes, you guys can test me. I'll go to the local university at Oxford, and he'll do an extreme feat of memorization that no one has ever done before. So they said, okay, we'll set up a date. They set up a date for him. He shows up and he goes, okay, today I'm going to read off the first 30,000 places of pi. That's pi. That's 25 places. He had 30,000 sitting there. One after another, never messed up. And what he did is he provided them paper, a stack of paper that was like a ream of paper, 500, 600 pages long. And he sat there and read off every number back to back to back and just went through the whole thing and never made one single mistake. It took him 8 hours to finish it. And they had people there checking him as he went. He took breaks, stopped for a few seconds, got a glass of water, went to the bathroom, and they had people always checking on him. And then he came back and he just started over again and just kept going. He never even was hindered by the break. And then they thought, okay, maybe it's just he has certain things memorized. He's taking years to do this because he's 40. He's just, showing this weird ability that he has. And don't get me wrong, 30,000 places of random numbers, that's impressive, right? I think he says he can do 1 million now, but because they have websites so he can just scroll through and memorize all the numbers. But Daniel has this ability where he can adapt on the fly. It's different than Kimpy. Kimpy can just read and memorize. See something, it's memorized. But Daniel can adapt. That's a very different type of savantism, right? Because you can see, like neurologically, he isn't hampered by this extreme ability. So what Daniel did to prove that he is in a different category of savantism is he goes, I can learn any language in less than a week. Any language. You give it to me, I'll learn it in a week, and I'll read, write, and everything with it. Okay? So, and they didn't think this is possible. And he goes, you can pick any language you want in the world, and I'll learn it in less than a week. And so they said, okay, fine. So they without telling him, they scheduled a flight for him to go to Iceland to be on a radio, or not a radio, but a TV talk show to talk to somebody that's from that country that he has never met before. He didn't know where he was going. They just told him that he has to know the Icelandic language. It's one of the hardest languages in the world. It's got a bunch of letters. If you've seen the countries, bless you, in Iceland, there's just very weird dialects, very, very weird slang. It's extremely difficult. It's almost as difficult as Japanese and Chinese to learn for the first time. And they gave him a book and said, here you go, you have a lesson a week. And so he shows up to the airplane 3 days early, goes, flies over there, has his interview on live television, and after the interview is over, the interviewer says that he knows that language better than I am, and I've been living here for 60 years of my life. He can talk, he can write it, he can express his opinions in different dialects from just a few days of learning it. Because he can adapt, he can read, but he can also apply knowledge from other things and adapt to a brand new situation. No one has ever seen something like that before. He currently teaches at Oxford in the extreme mathematics department. But yeah, he is extremely, extremely gifted when you see it. Now he's British, and he's from England, so you're gonna see a video of him. He's got super bad teeth, just get over it. It's one of those things you'll just get kind of used to. But yeah, I want you to see this. This is kind of a rare thing for a savantism to have this rare ability. See if I can bring this up here. Where's that? Bless you. There it is. That's the one I want.
I'm seeing things in my head like little sparks firing off. And it's not until the very last moment that those sparks tell me what on earth they mean.
I've never encountered anyone like this. He absolutely blew my mind.
To scientists, this man is a gold mine, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
This could be the link that spawns off a new field of research.
Why are they all so excited?
Genius. It's what you want.
Daniel Tarrant claims that since he was 4 years old,
79.
he's been able to do huge calculations in his head. So, in August of that
Yeah, he's 40 this
we
year.
dropped by,
He's 40
armed with a
this year.
calculator.
You can't see this calculator that I've got there, can you?
We first asked Daniel to multiply 37 by itself, 4 times.
Okay, 37 is the power of 4. One million.
Yeah.
874,100
So what you're seeing here is they're interviewing him very discreetly. He doesn't realize he's being video recorded, and so he doesn't realize it. It's like a pinhole camera on his glasses, and so they're testing his ability with just random math facts. And so the interviewer is trying to show what's happening.
0.13402.
What is it, 97 divided by, no, it's 3 divided by 97 or something like that.
5, 6, 7.
You're carrying on.
Carrying on. Do all the stuff now.
How many points can you do it to?
100. Nearly 100.
At this point, we borrowed a computer. But came to the
Windows computer, very old Windows. Windows 98, Windows XP computer.
567.
That's the weird thing, is like, if he was really doing division in his head, he wouldn't be able to do spurts of numbers the way he's doing it. Where he goes like 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 0, and then he slows down for a few seconds. That isn't normal division. Normal people don't do that. They do one number at a time very, very systematically, very smoothly when they're dividing in their head.
When you're pointing to the table and doing shapes with your fingers, what's going on there?
I'm seeing the numbers, but I'm not seeing them. It's strange. I'm seeing pictures, shapes and patterns. Almost like a square, like a texture of water and drops, ripples almost, like something reflecting. It's something you look for, almost metallic, and I'm up with a half, a bit like a flash.
It sounds preposterous, but if it's true, it blows away scientific theory. Daniel's brain seems to be doing something almost magical. It appears to be doing graphs without it actually happening. As if this wasn't it.
So what he explains, and this is a first time for Sevantism, is that he can explain exactly what he's experiencing when he goes through these like weird kind of questions and episodes where if somebody asks him a math question, he doesn't actually do the math. He's seeing like, it's almost like he's having a weird chemical reaction in his brain, and this is the tough part of this video is when you start to see it. It almost seems like he's having a almost kind of like a stroke almost, or he's having an epilepsy, seizure moment, because he's seeing sparks and flashes in his brain, and he can interpret the shapes of like what is being flashed in his brain as numbers. He's figured out how to like associate that certain shape or color, or he expressed it as like a ripple or a metallic flake look, and when that certain object comes into his brain, it's a certain number. He's associated that number with that picture that flashed in his head, and he can rattle off the numbers super quick. He's not actually doing the math. And so in later episodes, because I think there was like 5 or 6 episodes of this kid, he explains like, how did this come about? How did he know that? How did he associate that weird, like shape or flash in his head with a number? And it was when he was a kid, he had a playground accident and he bumped his head on a playground equipment when he was super young. And when he would go through math in class, he was starting, anytime the teacher would ask a certain question, he would always have these pulses of like light or something in his brain as teachers would ask questions. And he associated every time he's seen the same flash, it was always the same number to him on the marker board. It was the same number, so he figured out how to associate the flash of light or shape or color in his brain versus what the number should be said out loud. And he pieced it together as he went when he was younger. And that's why he waited for a while to come out in public, because he thought he was just having epileptic seizures. And he eventually found out that his brain is unique enough to be considered a savant because of his ability. And it's a very weird thing. It's a very weird topic when you talk about Sevantism and this ability to talk through what he's experiencing. Because that normally doesn't happen. Usually you can just ask questions and they answer, and there's no give or take. There isn't, much of a dialogue between the two, but Daniel's very different. But yeah, just kind of extreme cases. Now, why I bring this up, because it's the type of reasoning that you're looking at. If you look at your screen, inductive versus deductive. Deductive is memorizing, right? But inductive is this idea that you can adapt on the fly to a different situation. And in this class, you need to have both. Because what I'm going to do is over the next day or two, I'm going to test how well you are at each of these, right? How well are you at memorizing? How well are you at dealing with a new problem you have never seen before? Something that a logic puzzle of type. And I want to see how well you can do. So that's what we're going to do the next couple days. It's going to be kind of fun, kind of different. We're going to play, we're going to play a game. We're going to play some different things where, we're going to test you out with some different skills. So not to this level, but just something that you should be able to do, possibly. So that's what we're going to look at the next couple days. Questions with the topic. Hopefully that kind of sparked your interest a little bit. We do have a couple people in this area that are considered savants. There's a few. Some of them were residents at One Vision in Clear Lake. So they have this streaming human ability to memorize, and they can recall knowledge. It's kind of a rare gift when you start to see it. Yeah, that was it for today. That's all I want to look up. I thought it was kind of an interesting topic.